This meeting is being live
Now
streamed.
we're quiet.
We are on,
Yeah.
man. We are on.
Whoa.
Morning, good afternoon, good day. All
Buenos,
you
buenos dias,
YouTubers.
YouTubers.
I don't know, just made that
Tubers.
tuberist. We could be a tuberist, can't we? Is there a meaning for
Tubers. I'm thinking
tuberist?
tubers, like
Yeah,
potatoes.
YouTubers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy world out there, huh?
It is.
It's
Should
amazing.
we talk about the debate or just
No.
act like it never happened?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I went over my daughter's, my son-in-law turned 40, so went over, and my oldest boy and his girlfriend drove, and it was great. And but it was very, very specific that we're not to talk politics and all that, which was, I thought, was good. And and again, for me personally, I determined ahead of time and have been that I'm not going to get caught up in the day to day, what everybody's saying, what the debate and all this kind of stuff, who won, who didn't win and all that. For me, it's just emotionally in my head, but that's just my journey. So I know maybe some of you guys watched it
Did any of us watch it?
I didn't.
I didn't. I've
Yeah.
seen commentators pop up on YouTube Shorts. I can't believe that CBS, ABC, whatever, Alphabet. I can't believe those moderators. It was, they never fact checked Kamala or Kamala.
She was wearing earbuds.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, the earrings that are communication devices. I mean, yeah, we figured that.
We're not stupid.
But
Stupid.
I heard that they said he was not at his best, and she held her own.
That's what I
Whatever
heard.
that means.
That's
But
kind of what I got from
when
it.
did we start saying you could win a debate? Is that new language, or has that been around my whole life
Around.
surrounding politics?
Yeah, good question.
But I mean, really, it's like was it a football game?
Yeah, like
You
no one
know?
went in there with it. They're going to be convinced, right? I mean, typically in the past, the idea is that the debates are supposed to convince people one way or the other and get an idea of each candidate. I don't
Yeah,
think
what their
anybody
policies are.
was convinced by anything that was said. They already had sides picked before it even went off.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a kabuki theater, just another pantomime going on. And
then they all got together yesterday and did Kumbaya.
Who did?
Yeah, for 9/11.
the 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh,
They were
I missed all that
standing
too.
next to each
I
other.
could see the stiffness in the body language.
Yeah.
Oh heck yeah!
Wait, the
There
candidates?
was no kumbaya going on there.
No, I was just being, joking. No, but they,
Yeah.
presidents were all there, and supposed to be a
New York.
unified front for that, but yeah, I mean, definitely uncomfortable. I'm sure Trump wasn't uncomfortable at all. He just does. He's just
What's up, man? Yeah.
he just does. There's
No one can deny that he's got a quick.
74 years old or 70. It's just like I don't have anything else to prove. Except for I still got an attitude, and I'm still as quirky as all get out. His mind is sharp. He just, yeah.
They were smack talking about each other's rallies.
I know.
People leave your rallies because they're boring. Well, no one even shows up to your rallies, and I'm like, really? What are we in junior high? Are you going to like crap talk each other's outfits now? What is this? And do you think people like Jeff? You're talking about, like, are people swayed in either direction? Is that just a show for the people in the middle? But we're so polarized as a culture. Is there anyone in the middle?
I don't think we're polarized as a culture. I think that there's a lot of people in the middle right now, but the media
Really?
doesn't show us that. Oh yeah,
Undecided.
a lot of
Do you think
people
there's
that are still on the fence. Yeah.
I'm having trouble imagining the mindset that is on the fence between these two candidates because they're so opposite.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I
Interesting.
get what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not denying. I'm just saying I'm having trouble putting myself in their
I know.
shoes. Like what would your perspective have to be on the fence right now?
Not want, well, just wanting to be so, the independents that there's still that small majority of independent.
Okay.
But when Kennedy gave his vote, brought his vote over to Trump,
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
still
yeah.
there are those that are still in the decisive, because then you have the mindset of Kamala could be the first woman president. And so there's still that mindset thinking, even though, there's so much craziness going on that side.
Yeah.
Still the whole mantra of having a woman president and the power to the women and all that, which is, hey, I'm not against any of that, but I'm just saying
Sure.
that's where it's, you have those too. So whether her beliefs are one way or the other, because she's a woman, that's my vote, and I'm going there because that would be so cool to have a woman as, the first woman as the president, because women's rights and
I
all that.
guess. I mean, if we were the first one on the planet to have that happen, I'd be like, okay, I'm in. I get it. Vote with your gonads. No what? No, I totally understand it. I truly do. There's
Yeah.
no man that's got to be like, vote for that first man in government, right? So we don't get it. It's
We
not.
don't.
It's, never, it's not
Yeah.
a thing. But we've had. There's there. It's like they're creating a wall to have someone push through it because there's no limitations, and it just feels weird that that would be so important when there's so much other stuff going on today that would be a thing. Like she's already vice president.
I don't know.
It's just one seat over. I, what what mountain peak is that? And it's interesting, but it's obvious. I've seen plenty of examples of people who that's the only reason. Like that's it. I'm like, yeah, man, more power to you.
I mean, there have been many countries, other countries that have had women,
Yeah, it's like a normal thing. It's like it's not even a
president or the prime minister,
Right.
or
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, and even having, not even having the title of president, women have been in more powerful positions because of who they are,
yeah, yeah,
and who they are, and the mantle and the anointings that they carry, that you don't have to have that title. Some people
well,
want that, we feel like that's the apex to, but it's just like, that's not necessarily true.
no.
But in the physical eye sense, it's like, ooh. And I get that, because I mean, in
Hmm.
management, you know, I
Yeah,
I went from, a courtesy clerk to, supervisor to key holder to assistant, and my goal was to get a, manager, and on, and
yeah,
until my father retired me from that. And so I understand there is that call for position.
yeah,
You feel like you need it or want it because of, a lot of times for me it was pay structure, and, in that
yeah.
sense. But in reality, you work more hours for what you're for, what you're making, and it is more of a hassle than anything. But
And the fact that a stag party is having this conversation, that's not lost. I mean, we get it. we,
yeah,
we we don't really have a dog in this fight. I think it'd be cool though to see a woman president. I mean, just for the change. Like, all right, old white dude's been mucking it up long enough. We last 20 years we've had challenges to that stale progression or succession. Yeah. Why not? Let's see what can happen.
but don't they say, for every good man there's a woman behind him? So most of these presidents and stale things has had a woman behind.
Yeah.
So you could go
And
that
some
way.
of them actually had one behind.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think that, just like anything else, the United States wants to go and take it to the extent of all extents.
Yeah.
We want to be the take it to the top, and we're at the top of the mountain, and we're the ones that are doing it. So we're gonna push it, whether
Yeah.
it's in our our scroll or not, or whatever. We're gonna do it because what'll happen, if when that happens, then it'll just swing back, and then we'll get to the. But by then, we probably won't have two parties. Anyways, I mean, I think for me personally, I think the government, as we all thought it was and want it to be, is been nullified anyways. So,
Yeah, it's a big lie.
anyway, so yeah.
A
Well,
husk of a memory.
are there any cultures on the planet that have a system where there's some kind of popular vote, there's some kind of voting process? Doesn't it always whittle down to two parties? Are there other places are there multiple parties in I think Australia have a way like Labor, Tory? I don't know the words. I'm gonna get myself in trouble just even starting to yammer about it. But it seems like that's kind of a natural progression of choice. It whittles down. It's just in this
Option A and option B.
Yeah. I mean, the winnowing process will be, the group that lean kind of this way will find the best one, and the other group they can lean kind of this way. We're going to find the best one, unless there's groups that are like singularly focused on someone's particular plight. Well, then whoever is under the burden of that, injustice, they're going to always follow that party, no matter how small or large it is. But it just seems like a natural progression of human choice. I mean, and maybe
That's it right there. And that
Yeah.
was the choice in the garden, and it's always been that way.
yeah,
I think
it's going to go
I
that
think
way.
it's a father. Well, he
Well, you
created.
think about just the history of mankind. This whole party system is relatively young.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you had dictators, monarchies, right? So the experiment of a multiple party, multiple influence, bring your horse to the race kind of thing is fairly new, in the experiment. And you're always going to have one, right? You're always going to be incumbent. But I know that we used to have, other parties that were stronger in the early years of this country. But it over time, you had this bicameral concept that started to come into play, where now I think it would be interesting to be sitting around in the 1800s, mid 1800s, when you had a government that still really followed the Constitution. You had half as many amendments. You had
That's a balance.
no, yeah, the checks and balances are still a valid system, right?
Yeah.
No one that's living now has ever experienced that. We live in a contrived and controlled sphere of state play, and so the idea of this two-party system is just a theater show. I mean, you see people that are R's that are actually supporting D's and vice versa. And I think the biggest thing is just like the big parties that they have afterwards, and everybody's there having fun. You're like, it's just a big joke.
Yeah. It's the illusion of
and
choice. We know that.
it is.
It's been
It
bought
is.
and paid for quite.
Right.
I think we have a corporocratic government, but it's been bought and paid for. Maybe that's the idea. It's like we'd like different choices that aren't already paid for, but little changes in the long run, depending on R or D, which one gets in. So it's like everything that really matters to those who are holding the power and the finances, they're in. Doesn't matter. So there's this fringe stuff that the populace gets to argue over, and it doesn't really make a difference. You know, not one political party is not going to go in and remove lobbyists. No more lobbyists. No, you can't. You can't. That's not how we do it now. We're going to sequester the executive branch of the
Uh-huh.
government or the legislative. You know, like that's a great idea, but what? Who's going to do that? Yeah, who? What is the power to do that left in the presidency?
Yeah.
Or really, is it like, hey, there's this room. It's very clearly guarded. There's the gates. In this arena, as a president, you can muck up all you want. In 4 years, we'll get you out, and somebody else will come in. You know, if you live that long, and really, it's a well fenced off arena that the president can really. I mean, it matters to the people like in Springfield, Ohio. You know, that's the whole pets thing. Immigrants want to eat your pets. No, actually, that's not that they all want to, but it's a real thing that someone's experiencing. You know, like to those people, that small area of control that the president has makes a big difference. You know, I don't feel impacted by anything like that yet, but you know, so those matter. I don't know. I'm rambling now. Politics. It's all culture.
I just think we're at a tipping point as a species, and
Sure.
you know, Yahweh, Yeshua is on the scene doing stuff, and it's
Yeah.
going to look different in a couple of months. And we'll see. I mean, I think the lack of integrity and character, and let's just push and see how much we can get away with because nobody's looking. No,
Right.
and that's, and so it's, so I think we're in a shift and have been since 2020. And so, yeah, we'll see if there is an election. I think you have to assume that obviously too little too late to have a general conversation as a nation about voting integrity. So, we'll see. So I'm just, yeah, steady as she goes. And I think humanity needs some relief from what's been happening to the planet. And for those few that, are all about, corporate greed and power and all those things, I don't think they're going to be able to continue to go like they've been going. And we can see that we're all caught up in it. And so that's where I
Good.
just think we just, we do what we can do with our families. We're not going to get in divisive conversations and but yeah, so it's
We
it's,
can we
it's
can
going
do
to
it
get
with
interesting.
we can
It's
do it
going
with
to get
passion
interesting.
and honor. It is
Mm.
possible to have totally conflicting views debated amongst people who care about each other with full passion and share a meal afterwards. I know we're rambling politics. I've been reading this anthology of classic science fiction that won awards. So I'm getting some science fiction from like the 50s, which is really crazy how some of the culture of the 50s came through into science fiction. But there's this one where it's a far in the future and mankind has colonized like 1,200 planets. And there's this ship in the Empire that's going around, and a lot of these planets, they called it the Great Explosion. And a lot of these planets are characterized by different fringe groups, you know? And they land on this one planet, and it's this massive ship, mile long, 800 feet wide, and and they get out and they're trying to get to the leader, so they can, perfect and bring them into line with the empire. And the guy's like ignoring him. They're like, "You got to come take us to your leader." He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm leaving." and just walks away. There's this, it's just rigidity, and it's a little bit of tongue in cheek, but they send out different officers to go talk to other people, like who's the head honcho or who's the biggest cheese, and the guy's like, oh, Rick down the street, he has the best cheese. And the one guy, he walks in, they're like, I'm looking for the biggest guy in town, and they're like, oh, that's Seth, the baker. And he walks in, the guy's at 6'10", he weighs 300 pounds. Like you ask for the biggest guy in town, and they're totally confounded. And the ambassador's getting all upset at the disrespect, and he's like, what the heck? No one's gonna come visit me. And you find out the whole culture is based. This is great. One guy says, we're gonna fight you. And he's like, we have a weapon that you can't defend against. It's the most powerful weapon in the universe. And they're like, what are you talking about? You don't have some weapon. And they notice there's no big cities. It's all small towns that everybody knows each other, but there's like, billions of people on the planet, but there's no city. So they can't even find the capital to land in. So they're just like landing in random places that have people congregating, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling all over the place. But the funniest thing, this guy was like, we have a weapon that not only is it the most powerful in the universe, but we don't even mind if you have the secret because it can't be used against us. And the military guy's like, that's impossible. There's no weapon that you have that can't be figured out by someone like me and turned back against you. He's like, I guarantee it. I'll give it to you. And he takes this stick off the wall. And I can't remember the acronym. I think it's like FIW. But he's like, this is the secret. I won't. That's freedom. And they're like, you're a moron. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, I won't. I won't. And everybody on the planet lives by that. There's no money. It's all obligations. If I do something for you, you got an ob on me, and I'll fulfill my obligation. And if it's all based on trust. And if you don't, no one's going to deal with you. You're going to end up out in the wilderness because no one's going to feed you. Good luck doing your own thing because no one wants to work with you. Yep, you stole from everybody. And even had a guy, the story, the fable they teach the kids of this guy named like Freeloader Jack or something, and he would go from town to town. And he made it for like 20 years. He'd take, because you can just walk in and take. And so they locked up their stuff when he's in town. Well, now no one will give him anything. So he moves to the next town. And they're like, hey, we know about you, but you're gonna ship up and fly right with us? And it's easier if you just do the deal. It's easier. And he ends up out and he hangs himself, out in the wilderness, and he's starved, and he's like that when a society is based on that, the freedom of I won't or I will, and my currency is the trust you have in me to fulfill my obligations, everything works. There is no need for a central government. We govern each other based on, hey, it's really good. There's plenty for everybody. They even talked about having no land ownership. It's like the land is owned by whoever's making something from it. And if he abandons it or fails, it's somebody else's. No one's going to dispute it. It's all about the product, and I know it's ideological. I know that's ridiculously pie in the sky, at least as we've experienced it as a species on the planet. That's not going to happen. But to me, it felt like really what Yahweh intended for people to begin with. Like that's the intent of living together. You have the freedom to be whatever you want. And if it's not going to work with the people around you, you're going to be ostracized. There's not even a protocol. It's just the natural consequence of your behavior. And you won't be able to do things the easy way. It's easier if you play along. And anyway, the most powerful weapon in the universe was I won't. And I think you talk about the planet waiting for something to happen. There's 8 billion I won'ts that could say, you know what, we're done with this. We're over it, and you don't get to play anymore. Go to Antarctica. Anyway, maybe that's too simplified, but I don't know. Goes with breakfast.
Well, it's choice. I mean, what you're describing is this global agreement to choose
Yep.
one way or the other, right? And then
Yep.
it's not something that choice is not pie in the sky. It's very active today in everybody's life.
Sure.
Choosing to engage or not engage in one direction or not.
Yeah.
That choice is highly influenced by the world around you or what you choose to plug yourself into, right?
Yep.
So I think about people like who lean one direction or the other in this political race, quote unquote. Uh,
Who's winning?
you would ask them, who do you listen to? You know, your viewpoints. So you support this candidate. Who do you listen to? What are the on a daily basis? What news agency, service, what paper do you read? What blogs, social media accounts? Who do you read? What do you listen to? And you watch, they rattle out what they got, and you'll know exactly why they vote for the people they vote for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because their choice is influenced by what they listen to and what they see. And their belief system is basically hooked into that.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're hooked into one voice or another, your belief system is going to change into that. And that's going to be your choice. So, which is why, you know, media leans a certain direction because they're controlled by a certain voice, certain agendas, certain mindset. And so they bend people's minds and thoughts to a certain direction. They only put before you what they want you to see so that they can bend your concept and your understanding, your belief systems in a certain direction. And when you have this polarization in media and social media, then you see why people are polarized in one direction because of what they let their eyes see and what they let their ears see. And you scratch your head like, how are you thinking this way? How is that possible? Well, it's very possible when all that you're getting is a steady diet of this one way of thinking, this one belief system, this one narrative. Of course, they're going to believe that way. And like, didn't you hear about this? What are you talking about? That wasn't in the news. That wasn't there. That's bogus. Or yeah, I heard about it, but it was quickly debunked. You know, they say it was debunked, and I believe it. Right. So the there's polarization. It's because of how people are allowing themselves to see and hear, and they bend their choice in that direction. In a perfect scenario, everybody has full access to all information. People would be better fitted to make a healthier decision one way or the other. But that the lack of information, the lack of true information is what really causes this consternation in a society and this polarization. And that, is a struggle because we want everybody to have the full truth. But not everyone wants everybody to have the full truth. On both sides. We don't want the full truth. We don't want our candidate to be revealed as being less than. So as long as that's going on and there's deception and there's withholding of information and truth in it, and there's no transparency, no one can have the full truth. And so there's no one truly making a fully educated, full analyzed guess or choice, on the matter, because we don't have all information. We don't have all the information on Kamala. We don't have all the information on Trump. Right? We don't.
No.
And
No.
they won't let us have it because they control that information. So how do you know you're going to make a good choice based on what you're hearing, based on what you're seeing? That's difficulty.
And
And
doesn't it
that's
have
why, well, let
Okay.
me just finish this thought. That's why I think for us, it doesn't matter one side or the other,
Yeah.
because we're living above the sun, and there really is only one government that matters. There's really only one voice that matters. And
Yes.
as long as we're plugged into that, and we are loyal to that and faithful to that voice and that direction and that government, it doesn't matter who gets what seat and what position and what role, because there is a government that supersedes all earthly governments. And I think that's important as we get in this dialogue about government and about right or left, blue or red, up and down, left or right. It doesn't matter. We can have the dialogue, and it's interesting, and it gives us an opportunity to look into the human condition, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have to return to the fact that we're not of that system. We have chosen to step out of that system and into a supreme system of our Father in heaven, his government, his ways, his way of thinking, which is, as he says, not the way the world thinks. And as long as we remain in that and return to that when we have finished dialoguing, um, it's good. But if we start getting into I call, there's this picture that I always think about. It's when we are in the heavens and we're thinking above the sun, and our mindsets and our speech and our actions are influenced by that. We are like eagles soaring thousands of miles up in the air. Thousands, not thousands. Several miles up in the air. But when we get into this bickering and tit for tat down the earth about political systems and people, and we get caught up in it, it's like chicken scratch. It's chickens fighting on the ground for nothing, for seed, for bugs. It's just fighting in chicken scratch. It's like you have a wrong perspective because you're on the ground. And so we can come down and soar down and engage and see and observe the earth like our Father does all the time and what's going on. And we can make an ascertain information and what are the things that are happening? What is the world doing? But we don't live there. And we can fly in and breathe and speak into that and see and partner with the Father. But we live above that. So
Yeah.
But it's also
governments change.
it's
But he never does it.
so then that's the perspective that we need to have, but it's not a living in rest in the up here above the sun, but we're walking and working out, terraforming what's happening here below the sun. So it's not it's this passive, we just, as long as we just have this terrific mindset and we're all in with Yahweh and we stay above the sun, well, below the sun, depending how things play out, it's going to impact us. So, and if we have authority, spiritual authority to create as it is in heaven on earth and to change the atmosphere, what does that look like? What is that going to look like in the days ahead? And
Yeah,
yeah,
there's yet to be a party that embodies all of that.
yeah. Um, yeah,
So
I
we're
think
left with
just
the same
something,
choice.
there's a
But I don't
renaissance.
think there will be a party. I don't
No.
think there will ever
Yeah,
be a party that embodies that
yeah, yeah.
because it was intended to be a government body. It was
Right.
intended to be in the body of the people in the species. Like, what did Christ do? He didn't come and cast off the Pharisees. He didn't throw. Sometimes he put the Pharisees against the Sadducees, because just to reveal the heart of the matter. But he was never. He didn't come to like be a different party and take a larger portion, the majority of the synagogue of the government of 70 men to have another Pharisee group, you know, uh, that wasn't his intention. I mean, he spoke to it sometimes, but what he changed was the hearts of people, and the people changed the hearts of government, changed
Yeah.
the structures of government. So we're never going to change government by just putting together another party and you know making some room. Okay, we're the Green Party now, or we're the Yellow Party. make some room in Congress for us. We'll take those 20 seats over there. That's never going to change government. What has to change is the hearts of the everyday American citizen turning back to their creator, saying, I'm done capitulating. I'm not going to let the wool be covering my eyes anymore. I'm going to search out truth. I'm going to be uh, I'm gonna move towards a heart of compassion towards my neighbor. I'm gonna care for my fellow man because of the influence of Christ in my life, right? The influence of my creator in my life. And when people begin to wake up into that, they go back to that story, then they choose. No, I choose not to comply with your stupidity. I do not choose to comply with your authoritarian foolery. It's just stupid. And when you have a mass of people do this because of a heart change, a mass heart change, there's nothing that government can do. They're weak, powerless. They're bark with no bite. They've been robbed of their influence. Because that's really it is. You could push laws all day long, but if no one follows them, you're just a fool. And everybody looks upon you and casts a passing glance, like, who are you? Nothing.
Yep.
And I think that's the power of the people, is the transformation of the heart. And when the people's hearts are changed, and then the government changes. It's just a natural outflow of a community of people, of a population that has a sea change. And that sea change of the heart changes the landscape of government. Government thinks it's in control, but it's not really in control. The people continue to give them the ability to do what they do because they choose to just go along with it. They choose to comply. They choose to,
Right. It's a mirror.
yeah, they give to them what they desire, right?
At least
And
now,
I think,
like outside of barbarism, government is a mirror. They didn't get there because they showed up with bigger guns and took it over. And they're there by the threat of violence. I mean, for the most part, it's a big planet, but it's a reflection of civilization to some degree, as
right.
opposed to just who's got the most men who's willing to fight for them.
Right.
It's not
And so it becomes a
barbar.
boycott of the heart. The heart um, chooses, and I don't think you can say it loud enough, put on enough social media platforms to boycott things. It has to be at the heart level, at the spirit, where it just happens. People just
Yeah,
start to begin to change in their heart because the spirit
right.
begins to change
Yeah,
the heart. The
and they have to
brooding.
have a
This
belief
is
that they matter. Like
right.
it matters where I spend my money. That doesn't matter what boycott I follow, what group, thing
Right.
that I'm doing.
There's a
Like,
conscious
no,
change,
it
right?
matters
Yeah,
to
there's a heart
me.
change.
Yeah, it matters to me, and it matters where I put my face. It matters.
And that comes both ways, right? It comes from just the supernatural influence of Yahweh and his grace upon an individual out of the ether, out of him speaking. And it comes through the agency of his children who will open their mouth and say something and speak life and make the choice. It comes from a choice of another son that says, I'm not going to. And that reflecting out, manifesting before other men, women, people, and then sing and say, what's going on there? Why'd you do that? Oh, this is what's changed in my heart. And so this is what's important to me. And this is the outflow of that expression.
Yep.
And that becomes an influence, right? So it's really not an impossibility. Well, there's nothing impossible with Father, right? It's sometimes just a matter of enough of his children get their heads out of their butts or stop arguing and wrestling with things of little weight and turn into what really has weight, which is the love of the Father and the power of his love to influence and to transform nations and to take more energy focusing on that transformative power to get ourselves aligned and moving as a body, Christ in the earth, to be the influence, you know. And then with the two, with Yahweh stepping in at times like that bright, brilliant man out of nowhere, confronting somebody like Saul on the road. You know, that's like the 1-2, where you get the human voice and get the spirit voice. And together there's nothing that cannot be changed by that. Oh, I think there has to be a sea change in his own people to stop bickering about the mundane, the chicken scratch, and begin to really soar above it all and get Father's perspective. You know, like we do here, but a million times over, to cause that sea change of heart.
So what do you think in terms of just the systemic corruption on the face of the earth? It's everywhere. It's just like, wow, I didn't really realize it was this corrupt. It's pretty crazy.
Right.
So as we soar above that and we deal with our own stuff, our own corruption and rest and in relationships, how do you see Yahweh, big love, that he's gonna, how does he view that corruption that's existing in his children, right? And over 8 billion we're all his children. So is it working on those corrupt hearts, and over time and through the influence of that ATS has, and just, you know, goodness is just going to work its way in? Or does there need to be some type of a removal
All
of
the
the
above, man.
malevolence and the corruption? In other words,
I
I'm
think
not having to
that's
go at anybody,
right.
but you can take, as far as I'm concerned, you could take all of the corruption and malevolence and put it on a different timeline in a different dimensional
Right.
realm, and just do what you need to do there, big love, and let's, you know, it's
I
so,
think the
we
first
just
thing is
wonder how
we don't
how he's
put
going to
him.
do it. How is this going to,
The first thing I don't think we do is don't put him in a box.
yeah.
Scriptures show. I mean, from beginning to end, Genesis to Revelations, there's no box to contain him and how he will respond to circumstance. Like we could look at the circumstances and say, oh, okay, these are lining up to the same markers that so and so experienced back 100 years ago, and this was the judgment, this was the fallout. So I think this is going to happen to this person because they match up the markers for this person, right? But then Yahweh always throws in a change. And you look at Pharaoh, you see a man who chose to harden his heart at the beginning, and then you see towards the end, Yahweh is hardening his heart. It's like, okay, what's going on? The guy, man, he chose no, 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 and then finally Yahweh said, okay, it's a no, and I'm not letting you out of the no now, right? We're gonna ride this horse all the way to the end, right? So, like, you see the transition. There are times when Yahweh steps in and says, "My mercy and grace, I'm going to protect you. I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna shift you. I'm gonna change you." Then there's times where the malevolence just eats the people up. I think the true course of malevolence is self-destruction.
Hmm.
If someone is left to their own schemes, imaginations, they will eventually self-destruct. This entropy has a termination, and eventually, and you can see through history of mankind that a man left to his own devices will eventually self-destruct. He will choose to self-destruct. I think that's a judgment that Father just allows. I think that's part of the judgment. That's one of the judgments that the Father just allows to roll out. You also have the other influencers out there that who seek to kill, destroy, steal. Right? They're not, and it's not enough for them just to have like gray men running around and uh, uh, I'm not going to worship you. I'm not going to do anything, really good or righteous. I'm just going to live life. And that they hate mankind. They're voracious. They have a voracious appetite to destroy mankind. And
Yeah.
sometimes we forget about the level of animosity and
mm,
hatred
mm,
that this entity, these
mm,
beings have
mm,
towards mankind. So it's not enough for them to just
mm,
be mischievous. They will take them to the end of the line and destroy them because they hate the God seed in them and they hate any semblance of
Ooh.
of Yahweh's essence in them, that they will destroy them.
mm,
All those who have swear allegiance to these other beings and have chosen to cast off restraint of Yahweh, they have sworn allegiance to their own destruction because they have sworn allegiance to a being that cares not for them, loves them not, and hates them utterly, and
mm,
is going to use them for their own good and then throw them in the waste bag.
mm,
Actually, I don't even think they're just going to cast them off and ignore them. They will torture them until they exist no longer because that's how much they hate them. The hatred is immeasurable. The amount of love that Yahweh has for humanity, the immeasurable love, I think could be stated that the other side has immeasurable hatred for mankind to its utter destruction. So you've got man and his own choices that, again, choosing outside of Yahweh will eventually end in self-destruction. You've got entities who are also malevolent to the destruction of mankind, and they'll do everything and anything to destroy, to distort, and to steal and kill, right?
Like
And
the
then you've got
Watchers.
Yahweh who has his own. I don't even think sometimes I think Yahweh's like, I don't need to do a thing because A, they're going to either destroy themselves. And so
mm,
they live up in their own destruction.
mm,
And B, there's a whole other group of beings out there that will do their own bidding and destroy them anyways. So Yahweh stepping in to cause pain and destruction. It's like, I don't need to do a job. They do it well themselves. And there's others that will do it for me. It's so there's this whole spectrum of possibilities of man's outcome and who delivers judgment or delivers um, salvation, right? We know salvation comes from the Father. We know that ultimate love and peace and shalom and restoration comes from the Father because they ain't gonna do it.
We'd
So
like, we'd like
I
to
think
avoid another
fathers,
flood, please.
Yeah.
well, I know, right?
There, there,
And
you
that
know,
and you say that's the mercy of the Father, right? Because it's like
yeah,
I
it's a
don't want
tough
to
one.
lose everybody. I
No,
don't want to
no
lose
wonder,
everybody.
no wonder people are wanting
So
to kind of distance themselves from the Old Testament. That's a twist, man. You know, it what drove him there, and I feel like he's been telling us this the whole time. Like it does boil down to that. No man can serve two masters. You'll love one and hate the other. And there is no middle ground. You will tend towards one or the other.
Right.
Period. And government, honestly, it's just a pimple on the back of choice.
yeah,
It's just a mirror. And but because at your heart you will serve something that wants to annihilate and mock mankind, to spit in the face of Yahweh, or you're going to side with life. You're going to tend in that direction. It's muddy in the middle, I'm sure, but whether you know it or not, your choice is down to what you eat for breakfast. It's all part of that slide. I wonder if he made it that way. Like that's the fabric of. And so wow, Yahweh was so harsh for the flood. Well, they chose that. There's some
but
onus on
I think
mankind
mercy.
because they
I
made
think the
choices
flood was
that were in
a
line with
mercy for
destruction.
creation.
Right. Yes.
The love because the malevolence of man's heart was so wicked. Like
Yes.
if Noah wasn't found favorable, I don't think it would have stopped Yahweh from wiping the face of the earth from humanity and starting
Right.
again for the
Yeah.
sake of
Second Adam.
creation.
Yeah.
The influence, because I just did a podcast I'm going to put up here in shortly. The connection between man and the earth is phenomenal. The ground. That there is a um in Genesis, the words used for man and ground in chapter 2 are the same word. Same word. Just a different letter change. And so there's this connection that Yahweh had put between man and ground, the earth, that even after the fall, maintained was still there. So ultimately, if had man continued in his corruption, because remember, he was put over the earth, over creation, over plants, animals, to subdue it, to have dominion, that it wasn't removed. So he still had that ability in his corrupted state. And ultimately, corruption would have destroyed earth in his plan and purpose. And I think that the mercy there was that Yahweh was like, whoa, I don't want to lose it all. So I'm going to remove the cancer, the corruption that is going to self-destruct, so that I can save what's still good. And I think the favor that Noah had left for the species of mankind in that state to continue. And I know things are bad, but I don't think things were as bad as it was then. When you
No,
could only
not at all.
find one man that have favor, right?
Yeah.
And we weren't even sure that there was favor resting on his children and his wife. Just said Noah had favor, right? I mean, you guys got in by the skin of your teeth because of Noah,
That's
but
what
no
they're.
one else. But so there's no way that we can truly compare ourselves to the days of Noah in that regard, because there's
No.
still sons in the earth, and there's still those who protect the land, who are still trying to restore the land and bring righteousness in the earth. And that's different.
But
So I don't think we'll ever experience the flood as it was in the day of Noah,
the word
because
specific
we
about
still have
that,
man in the earth.
it's fire, as in the days of Noah. Well, how is it going to come? There's a fire. So the question is, what's the fire?
Nuclear war. Are you saying nuclear war,
I
bosses?
hate, listen, I tell you, after reading, I'll just say one thing about that Annie Jacobson bestseller, Nuclear War. One of the things the first half of the book was just talking about how man was able to take technology for such a malevolent kind of a thing. And then the second half of the book just talked about a what if scenario. And then of course we're conditioned, because I'm a little bit older, so we've been thinking about nuclear war, and of course we're so used to it. And so even to the point that today the jabron in North Korea, okay, wants to go and build some more and all this kind of stuff, but if one, it's not like the planet is not in a position to experience, because I would think that, I wonder if the Lord will allow two small countries to have an exchange for the rest of the world. That's gone. That if one country sets one off, they're all going. And I'm just like these ICBM, these intercom, there's no kill switch. When one goes, and the way they go up into space and come back down,
Right.
I'm just like, it's making me realize that the reason the planet is still here is because that's where you just know, because we would have destroyed the planet a long time ago. And the fact that, the nuclear language country to country is escalating, it is just so.
Here's a thought. Here's a
Would he
thought.
terraform? Is that okay, there's a new heaven and a
Well,
new earth? And
here's a
like,
thought, because I was just thinking about fire this
how
week.
about the fire of his love?
The
And then
fire
that
of the Holy
light
Spirit.
beam comes out of us, and we just
So you got options. It's going to be a fire, right? It's either choice A. Here we go, A or B. Nuclear war, scorched earth, as man's machinations make it happen, or the baptism of the Holy Spirit. The fire comes upon humanity and transforms the heart of man. Because where he shows up, fire shows up.
Right.
And that's what we would, either way, there's going to be transformation. I think you're right. It's just what door are you going to choose, humanity? You're going to choose self-destruction, or you're going to choose voluntarily immolation of the Holy Spirit, where he comes in and transforms the heart. That's a baptism that I think that we could get behind. I think that's a fire, a judgment, and it is a judgment.
Hmm.
It's a judgment of mercy and good, because when the fire of the Holy Spirit comes upon it, it consumes up all corruption, and what remains is incorruptible. So, and I think out of that baptism of fire of the Holy Spirit and the earth is where we get the new heaven and new earth, the new heaven, the new earth.
Very good.
That's what we got to be looking into and leaning into.
Hmm.
I think that the war of nuclear war is an intentional design by the other side, spiritual side, to get us off focus and into fear mongering. And I'm not saying it's not, I'm not discounting or belittling
Yeah, no, I
the
get you.
possibility there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it can lean or cause us to lean into a fear
Hmm.
that disconnects us from the desire and reality of this other baptism that Yahweh wants to put, a fire that he wants to put the baptism, a baptism of fire that he wants to put on the earth. His desires to pour out his spirit this way. And that we've
Willing
had tastes of
hostages.
it, but we have not seen the full baptism of the spirit of
I
fire
agree.
on the earth.
Yeah.
No.
Lord, let that come. Lord,
Yeah.
that be.
Flame on, baby. Flame on.
Flame on.
We see ourselves as we, and we realize that if I harm my neighbor, I'm harming myself. That's good government.
Yep, spirit of the law,
Yeah. If I harm my neighbor, I harm
law of the
myself.
spirit.
That's what his fire would look like across the planet. Is people standing up and saying, "No, I'm not going to hurt people anymore,
Hmm.
because that's hurting me." It's funny that science fiction story I was telling you guys about. The planet was called Gan, and they were descendants of Gandhi, a Gandhi ideology, and that's what
Interesting.
it resulted in, was realizing that I individually have the power, and if I hurt my neighbor, I'm hurting myself. We all got to work together, and that it was the core was freedom of choice.
Yes, sir.
So good.
Ooh, top of the hour.
Top of the hour.
Yeah. Well, we're juggernauts, powerful and unstoppable.
Yeah, we're going to talk about next week. We solved all the world's problems today.
Yeah.
Man,
Back
that's
to
all.
all come into alignment. And
It's a lot of pressure.
yeah.
If only. If only.
Well, a nation can be saved in a day.
Sure.
Father said.
Yep.
Did he not say
You're
that?
right, Paul.
Jesus say that. We can't just say sure and be flippant about it. No, that's the truth.
Hmm.
That is the truth. Now, what's the answer to that? I think love's the answer to that. I don't know how that,
Yep.
but we can look at Nineveh.
Yeah.
A million people, whatever. Took one man to come in there unwillingly. Unwillingly. But had the word of the Lord, whether his heart was for him or not, but it was the word of the Lord and he delivered it. And the king said, "Hey, this is what we're doing."
But do I really believe it's possible? I got to admit, the flippancy is rooted in,
Because we haven't seen it.
do I really believe it's possible?
No.
I want to say yes, but I betray myself.
Well, in the Old Testament, it was possible. I mean, it happened all the time.
It did.
Daniel, the three, I mean, they saw the fourth figure in the thing, and it was just like, hey,
Yeah, I have no doubt it has
we
happened.
serve.
I have no
Joe.
doubt it has happened.
Yeah.
And the hard thing to carry is, can it happen now in the land that I live in?
Right.
I want to believe.
It's still
really
a
cool.
heart issue. That's what it is. It's a heart issue. So
Sure.
You know, I mean, we may think that we're going to see it like instantly, but just like how we know, you know, it's a lot of times it's not an instant full change, and that's the thing. But the nation was saved in a day because I had an encounter with the Father.
Is
And
that how it happened in Nineveh? Man, I know the leader changed, and they're like, yeah, we've been being pushed in this direction, and you confirmed it. Boom, we're in. So they knew something was going on, and the leadership definitely seemed to have a change. I wonder if it was because the only way that could happen is spirit moving on a people in mass and showing them you have a choice that's so obvious.
yeah,
It's so obvious, it's undeniable. I mean, maybe yeah, you have some dissenters, but in mass, everyone says no. We want this. And so the spirit moves in a way that reveals that to them in mass. But I mean, it could have happened slowly too. I don't know, but
yeah,
yeah, but the spirit moves and presents an option that they didn't believe they had, or they would have chosen it already because it was better. They didn't believe they had, or didn't believe was possible. Just like me right now. Being challenged with that. Can America be changed in a day, and we start to really love each other and make things better?
it's got to be a miracle.
Yes.
It can't just be a flip. I mean, it's got to be a true like. All right, love you, Jeff.
All right,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
let's go. Let's wind her down. Love you guys. Stay in the way. Stay in the path. And until next time.
Party on!
Let's see.
Party
You still
you.
alive?
Yeah, we are still alive.
We
Well,
are
wait.
still
Soon. Get out of here.